you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Alright, so just for context for the people listening, I'm a Sunni Muslim, and I just had a couple questions on specifically your formula of the Islamic Dilemma. So could I just ask you quick, like, four rapid quick-fire questions, just for clarification?
Okay.
Alright, so do you believe that Muhammad or whoever wrote the Quran did not know the full content of the Christian scriptures?
I don't know if they knew the full content. I mean, we don't have within the Quran the mention of a lot of Old Testament prophets, elements of the New Testament, the historical books. So I don't know if they knew the whole content or not.
All right, thank you. And do you believe that the Injil of the Quran refers to the Gospels in your possession today?
Say that again?
Do you believe that the Injil that the Quran talks about is the same as the Gospels that are in your possession today?
No, I believe the Quran talks of the Injil as a book that came down, and that's not what the Gospels are.
All right, but do you believe that the author was referring to the Gospels?
I believe that the author misunderstood because he thought it was a book that came down, and that's not what the Gospels are.
All right. And so finally, do you believe that the way in which the Quran advises a 7th century Jew or Christian to see whether the Quran is true or not is by looking at the previous revelation?
Yes, because there's about 15 places that discuss directly and indirectly doing that.
All right, so you actually answered the very next question. So what actual evidence would you have to support the position that the only or prime way to deduce whether the Quran is true or not is by looking and confirming it by the previous scriptures?
The textual evidence within the Quran.
And, like, what is that specifically?
I just did a 30-minute video outlining every one of those the other day.
All right, well, look, I mean, we're having a quick dialogue here. Can you just, like, for example...
I'm giving you a quick answer that I did a 30-minute video.
All right, well, like I said, I'm trying to have a discussion here, so do you...
Well, you wanted a quick response, rapid fire. I'm giving you a rapid fire reply.
Okay, I guess.
I mean, you can go look up the 15 references in the video that I posted. Do you want me to give it to you?
I mean, you can do, but I'm just trying to have a discussion here.
Okay, well, I'll list them for you if you want. Do you have a piece of paper and a pen or what?
I mean, like I said, all I'm asking for is just like one or
But it's not an argument based on one. It's an argument based on about 15 different texts.
All right, and I'm asking you if you want me to engage with you. Do you have at least one that we can talk about?
It's a holistic argument, so if I give you one, you're going to tap dance and play games and pretend that that one verse doesn't prove the position because it's a position that's derived from about 15 different texts. Did you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you perfectly. But the issue that I'm arriving at here is, how can we have a discussion if you're here telling me, oh, well, go and watch this 30
Well, how can we have a discussion if you're not going to look at all of the texts that prove the position, you only want one?
Because I'm asking what your general idea is. I mean, all I asked you for was just
come on, man. What's your argument? Do you want
that the only?
You can go and look up the 15 texts that I listed. That's why I made a video of all the texts, so that this question can be asked for you. And if you know this debate, aren't you already familiar with the text we use?
Well, I'm somewhat familiar with the idea of the text I use. I don't know every single one, but look, I'll lay out my position clearly. I mean, my position regarding your formulation of the Islamic Dilemma would be the same one that basically most Muslims would offer.
I mean, I hear all kinds of different answers. So, I mean, the guy before you had a totally different answer than most people. So, I don't know what your answer is going to be.
All right, well, fair enough. Well, my answer would be that the Quran doesn't present that the only or prime way to deduce, for a 7th century Jew or Christian this is, to deduce whether the Quran is true or not, is by looking at the previous revelation.
No. So now you've already, hold on. So now I see what you're saying. You misstated. The argument is not that the only way to understand whether the Quran is true or false is by, there's all kinds of ways that I could go about arguing the Quran. I think it's Quran is false. But the argument is not that this is the only argument for the Quran. I'm sure you guys have all kinds of other arguments that you think it was preserved and you think it has this continuity and this beauty and all these different things that you think are arguments for it. This is an intertextual argument that shows a contradiction. So I don't make the claim that this is the only argument in the Quran for the Quran. That's something that you misattributed.
Right, but I'm specifically here I'm answering, the question that you specifically asked.
But you're responding to a straw man. That's not the argument. Our argument is not the Quran claims the only way to prove it is by looking at prior revelation. That's a straw man.
Right, but again, I've told you, I'm answering the question which you asked Daniel in your debate with him, which is, how can and I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, how can a 7th century Jew...
Yeah, but what I understand, you're addressing the dilemma, but what you stated is a straw man. We did not argue, quote, the Quran argues the only way to prove it is by prior revelation.
All right, so if you accept that there are other ways of proving the Quran...
No, that's your position. I don't believe there's other... I think the Quran is false. So, no, I don't think there's other ways to prove it.
I know. But what I'm asking you here is, if you agree that the Quran gives other ways to confirm whether it's true or not, then, I mean...
I don't know if the Quran... It's Islamic theology and some other places in the Quran make arguments that there's different ways you could go about proving it. For example, Daniel in the debate thought that citing modern scholars could be a way to prove it. Preservation might be a way to prove it. So you guys think there's a lot of ways to, quote, prove it. I don't care about any of that. All I'm arguing is that the Quran itself has within it textual claims that you can go to prior revelation to confirm it.
Right, and so, well, look, what is your view of the Injil then? Like, what do you actually think it is, according to the Quran? Not according to your opinion. According to what the Quran
I already said twice that it's spoken of as a book that came down.
So your view of it is that it's a physical book?
No, that is the Quran's view.
You just said it's a book that came down.
You asked me what the Quran says about it. All right, so you're playing games. You're playing games.
I'm playing games, yeah.
You asked me what the Quran says about the Injil. The Quran says it's a book that came down. That's not my view.
And that's literally what you just said. You said that the Quran says that the Injil is a book that
You asked me what the Quran says about the Injil, and I said my understanding is that.
Right, so let's stick on topic here about that. So addressing...
I haven't gone off the topic. You asked me that question.
I agree, and I was saying let's go back to the topic then. All right? So, hang on, so you do agree that the Quran gives other ways for a 7th century Jew or Christian to prove whether the Quran is true? Yeah?
I mean, I think there is a reference to something like, I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like, if any of you doubts, recite it and look at the beauty and the harmony, or it's some phraseology like that. So I'm sure that within the Quran, there's other phrases like that the Quran itself kind of is self-attesting. I'm sure that Muslims in the Hadiths and in terms of Daniel's argumentation, you guys would argue that the preservation proves it. I'm sure you've got all kinds of ways you think it's proved. Sure.
Yeah, so these things are evidence. So again, the question...
I didn't say they're evidences. You think they're evidences.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, these things are evidence. Because you said these things prove it, and I'm saying, well, I don't think it necessarily proves it. I think it's an evidence for it.
Okay, well, Daniel thought they were proofs, so whatever.
All right, well...
Do you think preservation is a proof?
I don't think it's an explicit proof.
Okay.
I think it's an evidence. I think it makes the position of it more stronger. In the same way that other things make the position more stronger. It's not just one thing which proves it instantly.
Okay.
And so the question now that I would ask you is, why would a 7th century Jew or Christian have to turn back to the previous revelation if the Quran already gives them a way to confirm the Quran, other than the previous revelation?
It's not giving an alternate way to prove it. That's what you guys think. That doesn't mean they're good proofs or good arguments. I think the Quran's full of contradictions. So I could just say the Quran contradicts.
I didn't ask what you believe, though.
You asked for my argument, and my argument is that the Quran contradicts.
That's not what I asked for.
I don't care what you asked for. That's my answer to your question.
I asked you specifically if the Quran gives another way for a 7th century Jew or Christian to prove that the Quran is true, then
I don't think those are proofs, and it doesn't matter if there are other means, because as I said to you about 5 minutes ago, I didn't make the argument that this is the only way to prove the Quran from the Quran. So you're going back to your chipmunk script that I already responded to. So you're just playing word games.
I'm playing word games, okay. You were the one that was trying to bring out the contradiction between Daniel and me, between proofs and evidence.
I have no idea who you are, so I don't. What do you mean? I mean, you're the one saying that preservation is an evidence and not a proof. Daniel said it is, so I don't care. So again, you're not getting anywhere. You don't have any arguments. This is getting old. What's your argument?
My argument is this, right? My argument is that the Quran is exactly what Daniel said in the debate. The Quran gives independent ways to prove the Quran.
I thought those were evidences, and now they're proofs. Are they evidences or proofs? You said 2 minutes ago they're evidences. You just said they're evidences.
Yeah, I agree they're evidences.
So then they're not proofs. Now you're saying that the Quran gives other ways to prove it.
Right, and I'm the one that's saying I'm having word games or whatever. Yeah, I'm the one doing word games. But
yeah, exactly, because you just contradicted. Good job. Let's move on. That's what they have. So what happened was his whole setup was that he thinks we're saying the Quran teaches the only way to prove the Quran is by prior revelation. And if he can show that the Quran has other places that tell you other types of proofs or evidences, then our argument falls apart because we thought that there's only one way to prove the Quran. It doesn't even matter, because if the Quran in one place says you can look to prior revelation to confirm it, that's enough to show that it contradicts prior revelation and it contradicts itself. So all of that nonsense was absolutely a total waste of time to achieve nothing.